You're listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast, a discussion with engaging, empowering, and enlightening leaders about the greatest competitive advantage in business and entrepreneurship that often goes unrecognized: a team's energy. Here's your host, the woman who puts the energy in synergy, Karen R. Jenkins.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Synergy Leadership Podcast. I am so honored and excited to have a special guest, Mr. David Howard from Charlotte, North Carolina. I met David almost 2 years ago, and I can tell you my life has not been the same ever since. So without further ado, I would like for you, Mr. David Howard, to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello, I'm David Howard. I'm proud Charlottean, born and raised up here, up the road from you, and have been involved in community activities. It feels like my entire life. So yeah, it's great to be on your show. And yeah, we have been joined at the hip for a while here. So great things to talk about.
David, I need people to understand who you are and the caliber of person or the experiences that you have. So tell us a little bit about your background. Who are you? What do you do? What are your experiences?
You know, it's kind of interesting. I heard a speaker use this term recently, nonlinear. My career has been nonlinear. And it has been everything but what you expect. Grew up wanting to be an architect. You guys have a guy that's from South Carolina that came to Charlotte and became our first black mayor, a guy named Harvey Gantt. He was our first black mayor, and he was an architect. So when I was young, I started looking that up. Love Legos, love buildings. So that turned into this love that I have that I think has developed into what I call myself a city enthusiast. I love the way cities and communities come together. So I spent 18 years of my life, after I went to college for architecture, by the way, and did not stay in it. But that's another long story. But I wound up working for a development company that built affordable apartments and that actually helped with revitalizing inner city communities. As a matter of fact, one of my largest accomplishments to date was overseeing their largest redevelopment of about 100 acres right outside of downtown Charlotte, a community called Brightwalk that I'm extremely proud of. My children will tell you I call it my fifth child because I love it just that much. But that led me to some opportunities with the government, getting to know all of the folks in the government building, and I was recruited to be on the Planning Commission. Before I left the Planning Commission after 6 years on it, I was the chair of that, becoming only the third African American to do that. Very proud of it. But it came at a time when Charlotte was, not that Charlotte's never growing, but we hit this growth spurt with infrastructure, dealing with our outer belt, our airport expanding. We were looking at how to get our light rail expanded to our university. Just a lot of transportation things going on during that time. And then, as God would have it, a young man that was on city council, his name is Anthony Fox, ran for mayor. And Anthony and I went to high school together, been friends for a while. And Anthony, I took his seat on city council, and he asked me to be chair of transportation and planning. At the same time, all this incredible stuff was going on. Well, you know, the way history would go is that this guy got an opportunity after we had the DNC in Charlotte to go to Washington, where he was Secretary of Transportation for the entire country. Short time later, I followed him over the federal highways as he was starting to talk about this huge thing called equity in transportation. We can talk about that later. I won't go into that. That led to an opportunity after the Obama administration ended. Oh yeah, I worked for the first black president. Very proud of that. But that led to an opportunity to come back to North Carolina as the Chief Deputy Secretary for NCDOT. All of that experience kind of led me to looking for, you know, how can I help other people? Because a mutual friend of ours, Shelby Scales, that put me at your door. And now I'm a consultant for your company. How about that?
That is awesome. So as I said, my life has not been the same since I met you, David. It has been an honor. You know, you are a well-respected expert in the transportation industry, but you're also a very strong leader in the business sector. So share with our audience a little bit about your leadership style and your leadership strengths.
Let's see. So my leadership style is one of very much of collaboration. I don't think that we do anything by ourselves. Matter of fact, I have a quote that I like to use that public service is a team sport. You don't do this kind of stuff by yourself. It's actually very much the Charlotte way too. You've been, you know, spending more time in Charlotte as of late, and you see that Charlotte has a very much a can-do spirit. It's also a community where the business people and community leaders join hands together to get a lot of things done. So if you listen to what I just shared about my work in the inner city, working with developers, working with the business community when I was on the planning commission to get the light rail line up and going, I'm a relationship builder too. So, I built those relationships and they've maintained over time. One of the best pieces of advice that Anthony Fox gave me is that, David, in these types of positions, public officials, elected officials, being involved, you're going to meet some really incredible people. The key to it is not to let those relationships go. He said, when you're traveling and you're in a town where somebody else is, look them up, go have coffee with them, keep the relationships going. So one of the best pieces of advice that I got was to keep those relationships strong. So, before we started doing business together, if I was in Columbia, I was going to call Karen just to see how she was, to stop by her office to see how she was doing. And oftentimes, opportunities grow out of those interactions. It was actually me just reaching out to Anthony on one of my trips to Washington just to say hello to a friend that led to him saying, hey, I'm getting ready to do something. You should come up here and join us doing this. So that's one of the pieces that I would share with folks. Keep those relationships strong.
That is phenomenal, which was actually my third question. So I'm going to ask you a third question, even though you've answered part of it or a good part of it, to see if there's anything else you want to add. One thing I noticed about you is exactly what you just said, that you have built a network of connections over the years. And you just have this expertise in continuously building upon your network while you massage your existing relationships. You do it in a way that's warm, that's inviting, and more importantly, genuine. You were probably one of the most authentic people I know. Can you share your synergistic style of networking that has created such a strong network? What other things can you attribute to or tell our audience that they can do or apply that you may not have shared already?
You know what? I was thinking about this on the way back to get ready for this interview. One of the things that I have enjoyed about working with you and our team so far is trust. Trust is such an important word. I was thinking about situations where I didn't feel that I trusted the people I worked with, and it was never a good situation. I think what I try to convey to people, whether it's working with the city staff, when I was on city council or the planning commission, when I was chair, when I was chief deputy secretary of the NCDOT, I tried to make sure that people knew where I stood. I'm a very intentional person. I think intention is everything, but at the same time, I'll be very honest with you about where I am. And I try my best. I told the folks when I was on city council in Charlotte, I told the staff, I'm not going to always agree with you, but before I sit in a public meeting and tell people that I don't agree with you, I'm going to give you every opportunity to talk me out of the way I feel about it. So, I tried to make sure that there were no surprises. I don't like surprises. I don't like surprise parties. I don't like surprises. I don't like surprises. So, I try to treat people the way I want to be treated. So, because I don't like surprises, I try not to be a person who gives you surprises. So, because we built that trusted bond, not one of always agreeing, but one of understanding each other's ground rules, I've left a lot of good relationships, as you can tell. So I think trust is at the heart of all leadership, to be honest. If you can't be trusted with what you say, if you can't be trusted by what you promise, the word very quickly goes out that that's not somebody you want to do business with. And I never wanted to be that guy. I saw people come and go as elected officials that nobody wanted to talk to after they left. And I studied people who left that are still leaders, 30 years after they were elected officials. And the one thing that I found is that those people were very transparent and they treated people right. And people wanted to still work with them after. So that's the model that I've tried to employ. And this is what I still do.
I can compliment you on that, David, because I see you living that out loud every day. And I won't say it's rare, but it is rare that you do get to see somebody so authentic that is really living his life out loud around his core values. So thank you for that.
The one thing that I look for are people that are like that. That's the other part, is that you can't do that with everybody. You have to know who you can do it with and who you can't do it with. I am very strict, no other word to use, about how I spend my energy. The way I use my energy is important to me. I tell my kids, my son all the time, don't let that into your spirit. Why even let that in? If that's not something that can help you, don't do it. So it's also picking the people that you intentionally want to be around and be a part of. You don't want to put your energy, you want to invest your energy in stuff that is not going to make this world a better place. That's one of my core values. I don't do it. If I find myself in those situations, I try very hard to get out of it. So that's the
Yes.
other thing that I want to say about working with you and the others that have been part of this thing that we've been doing over the last 2 years. I mean, Shelby Scales and Brenda. I mean, they're people, Al Austin. They're people that embody those same spirit. So I don't let people around me that don't, not for a long time anyway. You may get around me some, but you won't stay. That's for sure. So just wanted to add.
Thank you. And it scares me sometimes, the commonalities that we have, that we share. I don't like surprises either. That I
Yeah.
told my kids when they were little, I don't care what's going on or how bad it might be. You might need to call me first because I don't do well with the surprise part. We'll handle it, but there's nothing out there that I can't handle as long as I'm given an opportunity to know it's coming and adjust for it. And of course, you can't know everything, right? You can't know everything. But I do align myself with like-minded people and like-minded spirits. So it's that synergy. We talk about synergy leadership, and I think that's one of the things is protecting your energy and making sure that you're not around other people that will drain your energy, but people that are going to lift you up. So, can you share an example of a time when you witnessed strong synergy within a leadership team or between organizations? And what were the key factors that contributed to that synergy? And what were the outcomes or benefits that were achieved as a result?
I think the best way to do is probably take one of the things that I'm proud of, that I've been a part of. And I've had a lot of blessed successes. But the one I'll talk about is, so what Anthony Fox was going to do as secretary was going to start talking about the way that infrastructure had been used to divide the Black community. Whether it was a highway running through one of the inner city communities, if it was urban renewal project taking away neighborhoods that people had lived in. What he was saying is that statement that we've heard all of our life about growing up on the other side of the track is true. I mean, infrastructure had often been used to divide communities, literally. I mean, it's crazy thing like the fact that I grew up on a corner in Charlotte called West Boulevard. And I was in my 30s, man. Really, it's crazy as it sounds before I realized when you went across the train tracks, literally, it turned into East Boulevard. And it was a completely different neighborhood 1 block away. It was all about the address. So what he wanted to do was talk about how we should take equity into consideration when we're building infrastructure. Not everybody agreed with him. Matter of fact, he put me over in the highway division because he had a pretty big operation. I was over policy there. And the folks in the highway division were offended that he said that because he used terms like we needed to correct the sins of the past. They were Black engineers. They were offended to say we did what we were supposed to do. We followed the policy. What else were we supposed to do? I mean, they were offended that he called it sins of the past. Secretary Pete Buttigieg is dealing with that right now. I mean, there's still people that take offense to talking about the fact that an engineer did something that was harmful to a community on purpose. So going into that situation, we had to figure out how to bridge that divide. If he was going to really make it a national conversation, how do you deal with an obvious impact? Because, we saw it all over the country with some solutions and actually get the people that actually spent the money to do something about it. My job was to go in to talk to these 52 division engineers or division administrators across the country, the 50 states and the territories, to start talking about how we do it. And what we did is we got them to attach to the conversation from an emotional standpoint and not just a professional one. Do you know of communities where that happened? Do you know of situations where that could have been done differently? Do you think that this was a good thing? Look at what the effects were. And by the time we were able to attach to it from an emotional standpoint, and then Anthony really spent time getting to know each one of them, all 52 of them, something the secretary didn't do, by the time, and I was only there for 11 months, past 11 months, right at a year, almost a year. But by the time we finished that conversation, Karen, we had a full highway administration ready to back what he was talking about. They came up with solutions. So sometimes you have to go beyond just the professional and get people to understand kind of the way that what you're doing had made the people you were serving feel? Did it get at what you were really trying to do? And now we took something really in a short period of time that has turned into what me and you are working on today, which is trying to make sure that the U.S. Department of Transportation is doing stuff that actually contributes to citizens' lives and not just take away from it. It is thinking about everybody that it serves and not just the people that it has traditionally helped.
That's a great example of what I call true leadership. One of the things that we do is change management, and what happens in organizations is somebody makes a change and they just give an order, from the executive level down that says, "Hey, we're going to do this," and then they don't realize the impact that just literal change has on individuals and their work lives and their lives in general. And people don't always embrace change. They resist change. And until you can help them understand the why behind it or the what's in it for me behind it, you're not going to get that buy-in. And, Secretary Fox utilizing this strategy of meeting with, helping the 52 individuals understand the perspective of it's not a pointing a finger at you, it's not a blaming you, it's a, hey, let's look at this realistically as far as the impact of what was done, made a big difference. And as leaders, we have to understand that and apply that same strategy.
And he went back to the base of why transportation existed. It was to give people who needed access, whether it was to education, jobs, better health care. Somewhere along the way, it became just an exercise of building the best interchange you could build, and forgetting that if it's not contributing to a new factory, a new job opportunity, if it's not getting you to the hospital quicker, if it's not doing something that actually improves citizens' lives, it's just an exercise. So, we take it back to the base of remembering this is about access.
So when you look at just the various teams that you have worked with and your experience, what are some of the common challenges that leaders face when trying to cultivate that synergy among their teams and between organizations? And then how can they overcome those challenges?
This is probably the wrong thing to say on a podcast like this, but I'm not sure everybody's supposed to be a leader. We all have roles, and some people do those roles better than others. I've worked with people that I pushed to be a leader, to want more FTEs, more people under them, and they're like, no, don't want to do that. I want to go do that project over there, and they did it well. They did it incredibly well. I've grown out of this thinking that I could turn everybody or anybody into a leader. Some people, in fact, let me be clear, a leader of people, because leading a project is still a leader. So understanding that, maybe they're not going to be the CEO, but they may be the best policy person ever. They may be the best project manager ever. That doesn't mean that they need to lead a group of people. That's not meant for everybody. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, understanding that, if this is what your calling is, you're equipped already. So, understanding how both of us do this, the harder it gets, the calmer we get. Because I think, I've seen you do it. Really, the crazier it gets, the calmer we are, because that leader has to be that person that sets that tone. One of the things I learned early on is that the leader sets the characteristics of every organization takes on the characteristics of its leader, every one of them. There's a reason why our country was crazy for a while. It takes on I'm sorry, I was trying to be political. It takes on the characteristics of its leader every time. So, one of the things you have to know as a leader is that you have to have yourself positioned correctly. You got to have a plan, give a strategic thought to the way and the outcomes you want so that you can pass that on to the people that are following you. I subscribe to John Maxwell's book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, which talks about starting at position. And then the next thing is actually building a relationship. The next thing is accountability, but the fourth level is turning the people that have followed you into leaders. So you also have to invest back to make sure that, your legacy is part of keeping the organization going beyond you being a part of it. So I think I just said a lot of things. I don't know if I answered your question, but
you just dropped you dropped a whole lot of great nuggets, and they were all great. I'm sure that our audience is going to be taking copious notes, at least I hope they are, and applying some of this, because the reality is that you're right, that everybody is not meant to be a leader, But I think as leaders, we have to recognize our talent and recognize how do we leverage the talent of the person and not try to stick a round peg into a square hole. When you look at a basketball team, everybody's not a point guard, everybody's not a post player. But when
That's
you can
what's
go
right.
in and assess what their skill set is, then you put them in their right position and give them what they need to flourish. And what we've done on our team is done an assessment of skill and understand that we have people over here that are very good with, policy and keeping us out of trouble. And then we have another group over here that's, really good at project management and making sure that we're staying on point. We have the people that make the rubber hit the road. When people like you and I come up with vision, they're the one that's taking it and running with it. And then we have some people that tend to calm us down.
You
So,
know what? And I told you this story. If you don't mind, I'll do real quick on the video. Is that we both work with this incredibly talented guy named Al Austin. He's just incredibly talented. He worked with me when I was at NCDOT. And the other thing I subscribe to is Strength Finders. I'm a big thing on Clifton Strength Finders. I like DISC, I like Myers-Briggs, but what I like about Strength Finders is that what it's saying is that if you use your strengths right, you get a 10x effect quick.
right.
I mean, most people do DISC and they do Myers-Briggs, and we go straight to what our weaknesses are because we think we got to shore them up. Strength Finders is saying, there's some value to working with your lower strengths, but you get 10x and more out of working with your top 10 strengths. So when we worked together at NCDOT, because I'm a visionary, they would joke with me and say on my whiteboard was going to always be a new idea, and not everybody flows like that. They take one project and they go do it. I would get frustrated with me. We're like, dude, you just gave me 2 new ideas last week. Let me finish those before you give me something new. He and I were disagreeing about a trip I wanted him to take some students on. And, Al looked at me and said, look, dude, I'm not a yes man. I'm not going to just do that. I don't agree on that. That was the first time he kind of, like, no, that don't make sense. He taught me something. That's where I'm going. He taught me that because I can be an idea guy, I don't always slow down and he taught me this word, unpack the details. And the one thing I think I learned is that I have to slow down sometimes, especially when I'm dealing with executors, because that's what we got out of Strength Finders, is that I had a whole staff of executors. So I was frustrating all of them, and I didn't realize it. I was frustrating all of them. And when I realized I needed to unpack things, I put time on my schedule to say, let me give you everything that's in my head about this so that you understand. Because I'm one of those guys, I get 70% of a download and I'm gone. I don't need 100%.
Right.
70% got me over that threshold of thinking that I could fail. I'm gone. And not everybody's like that. Some people, I had a guy that needed 100% of everything before he moved. And it was frustrating. But I mean, we learned to unpack things for each other so we could get there. So unpacking is the word that I wanted to leave is as leaders, we got to learn how to unpack our thoughts sometimes for people who are not understanding where we're going.
Very true. And the other thing I'll tell you is in leadership, sometimes we have to ask our team, support our team in managing up.
Yeah.
As much as sideways. I have to be managed sometimes. You and I are a lot alike. We get that idea, and the team over here looking at us like, okay, really? I tell my team, if I'm going too fast, slow me down. If I'm looking like I'm getting ready to run a ditch, pull me back. I need them to be my tentacles, the extra arms, the extra ears, the extra whatever. I'm not prideful. I can be told, no, that's not right, Karen. And if you give me the right information, I'm a logical person, go back off. But leadership means that not only are you willing to give direction, right, and give guidance, but you're also willing to receive that feedback and not be offended when somebody tells you, oh, that's not a good idea, or wait a minute, this is not working for the team. Because at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about the team.
One of my managers gave me that early on in my career. She said, you got to learn how to manage a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And the people around me at the time thought that I was the teacher's pet because I used to get whatever I asked for from her. All I did is took that one piece of advice she got me is, you don't go tell her stuff in the morning. You tell her stuff when she's in a good mood. You pick the time. I learned how to manage my manager. And I've been successful. So that's the other nugget that I would give everybody on this podcast. Learn how to manage a manager. Because, I mean, not every idea needs to be said at every minute of the day. Learn when to give it to them, learn how to package it, learn what information moves them, learn how to manage your managers, what you just described.
Oh, this is a great conversation. I'm loving all of it. I'm taking notes myself, some reminders and some other stuff.
Yeah.
So, this is about synergy leadership, and synergy is the ability to leverage your energy and the energy of others to accomplish common goals. Tell us about a time when you have experienced that level of leveraging and cultivating synergy with someone else or an organization.
One of my favorite books is Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. He talks about these three different types of people, and out of the three, I am absolutely a connector. I connect dots in my head. So I think for me, synergy is easy because I'm always looking for opportunities to do it. I'm always intentionally trying to connect. I think the best example, to be honest with you, is when I looked this up for my own edification the other day to just look at how God moves things. Shelby Scales sent me a text in a group of about 5 of us, September of 2001, saying, hey, I really need to find some folks I can do business with to pull into these opportunities in Washington. And an 8A would be helpful. I'd only met one 8A in my life, and the only person introduced me to that one 8A was Brenda Anderson. So I decided to reach out to Brenda, and actually, Karen, it was 2 months after Shelby's email when I started looking at the fact that I looked at the email. So it wasn't even right away because I was doing other stuff. I reached out to Brenda trying to reach this other person, and I got this other person, and they didn't respond. And Brenda said, "But I got another one. I got another one." Person down in South Carolina. You're like, 2 more months go by. It was December of 2001, when I finally connected Shelby to this wonderful person I had just met named Karen Jenkins in South Carolina. And actually, I hadn't even met her yet. Brenda, I just trust, right? I trusted Brenda. Brenda didn't know Karen, hadn't done anything with her, but I trusted Brenda. And I took a connection at a national level based on trust and gave it to Brenda to run with. 6 months go by. I hadn't heard a word. Talking to Shelby, and Shelby says to me one day, David, what you really ought to be doing is not out here just looking for a job. These 2 ladies I've been talking to use a transportation expert, you ought to talk to them. Well, who are they? It's Karen and Brenda. You talking about the people I introduced you to? I mean, so synergy happens when you're where you're supposed to be. I mean, and again, my motive was always to help people. I mean, and I definitely want to help African-American entrepreneurs all day long. And if I can find people that know what to do with those relationships and I can trust them with it, I'm going to do that all day long. That's why trust came to mind when I was on my way here. I was wondering, what do I want to leave folks with? And, without the trust, without saying that people will take relationships and knowledge that you have and do something good with it, because I've been around people that didn't do that. I think that's where the synergy comes in. You finding those right things to connect, and then letting the universe guide you, letting God guide you through those situations. Because not all of it is you going out and having some brainstorm where you take 3 companies and put them in a room. Sometimes it's just following that process, following that flow. And the best example I have is this very relationship that we're talking about right now. Because, watching what has happened because I was obedient, the fact that it was setting me up for an opportunity, that's what happens when the synergy goes good. It just all comes together in this way that only God can get glory for. So,
amen. I will say amen, amen, and amen. And you keep using the word trust. And, we went through this process with our team, and we know our mantra is helping people, adding value, making a difference. But then we say, well, who are we to our clients? And we are that trusted advisor, right?
We're learning a lot about that, aren't we?
Yes. So Shelby came to you as a trusted advisor. You went to Brenda as a trusted advisor. Brenda came to me as a trusted advisor. And then we're back to you as a trusted. So it's full circle. And that's who we are for ourselves, for each other in our inner circle. And that's who we are for our clients. And we will live on that mantra. We will live on that mantra as we grow and prosper to positively impact the people's lives that we're serving. And I'm just really excited about where we're going. I'm excited about you being on the team. I'm excited about just the opportunities that we have to touch people's lives. And that's important to me. So as we wrap it up, David, and come to a close, 2 questions remaining. One is, of everything that you've experienced in your leadership journey, what are you most proud of?
Ooh, I know this sounds cliche, but I have to be honest with you. It's my family. Funny you say that, because one of the things I'm going to get you involved with that you don't know about yet is that early 2000s, I knew I wanted to run for city council, and I realized that I was only as strong as my support system. My family and I got together in my living room. I mean, I'm talking about all of my sisters, siblings, parents, and we had a family retreat. And I had somebody come in and facilitate it. My mentor did. And we set a family mission. We did individual goals. And just to report out real quick. So I think my role in my family, all 3 of my sister-in-laws went back to college. None of them had gone to college at that point. All of them have now graduated with a bachelor's. One has a master's. My wife went back to school, went on and started, she's on her 3rd business, the most successful one so far, desserts. My in-laws took a transportation business that was 1 van and grew it to over $1 million in revenue over the next couple of years, with now they've got as high as 10 vans. My nephew graduated from college. I mean, it was just this crazy effect of God on that one little meeting of us being intentionally getting together to support each other. I kept thinking, I do all this in corporate America. Why won't this work in my family? And again, me and you being those people, I said, what the heck, let's try it. And all of that grew out of it. So as much as I've done with Bright Walk, Washington, Raleigh, with you, all these incredible things, I am the proudest of what my life has meant to my family. Because it's not just cliche, like, it's cute, they love me and we've done good. They did incredibly well when we got intentional about growth.
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. And congratulations to you and to all of them. Just, it makes a difference when you have that support group, and that support group that wants to see you become the best version of yourself. So I am just so excited. I can't wait for our listeners to hear that, because I know some people are going to go put that into action.
I want you to be involved in my next family retreat.
I'm there. I'm there.
That was a setup.
Okay, look, I'm in.
Ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise.
That's it. All of that. I'm right there.
So.
I am right there. You say when. You just say when. So as we close out, if you could share with the audience one piece of leadership advice, what would that be?
Oh, that's easy. Move. Move. So, oftentimes when you have done all that you need to do, you need to be ready. When you're doing your daily meditation devotion with God, when your family's aligned, when you have order in place, when you have balance in place, when you have, those things that matter in place, you're going to start hearing very clearly what you need to be doing. Go start a new business, go, whatever that thing is that God has given you as a mission. And when you get it, don't sit on it. Don't sit on it. Move. One of the mentor that I told you that did the family retreat, he said, David, the difference between you and most people is that we all hear things. We all get opportunities. The difference between you and most is that when you get it, you take it. I don't let opportunities pass me. Don't do it. I mean, I try hard. If I see one that gets past me, I try to go back and get it. When you get the opportunities, MOVE, move.
That is awesome. That is great advice. And David Howard from Charlotte, North Carolina, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your experiences and information and just great advice to our listeners. I hope you will come back, because you and I can talk for days, but we'll definitely have you back again. And thank you again. And to our listeners, thank you for being here and being part of our Synergy Leadership community. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast with Karen R. Jenkins. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, rate, review, and share our show. See you next time.